Welcome back to the revision of modern user interface design. We had started our discussion with Module 1, wherein we had covered the importance and the benefits of good user interface design and the characteristics of graphical user interface in the previous video. And in this video, we shall be discussing about the general principles of user interface design, the differences between graphical user interface and the web page design, then followed by indirect and direct manipulation for graphical systems, followed by the characteristics of intranet and internet. So now we begin our discussion with general principles of user interface design. So in this slide, we shall be discussing the design goals in creating a good user interface. They are basically the fundamental to the design and implementation of all effective interfaces, including whether it be GUI or web interface. These principles are general characteristics of the interface and they apply to all the aspects. So when you design a user interface, it should be aesthetically pleasing, clear, compatible, configurability and consistency control, and it should be direct, efficient, it should be easy to recover, and it should be responsive, as well as it should be as simple as possible. So when we say that the user interface must be aesthetically pleasing, it means that it should provide visual appeal by following the presentation and graphic design principles, such as providing meaningful contrast between screen elements, try to create groupings among the screen elements, and by trying to align the screen elements and groups, as well as to provide a 3D representation, and by using proper coloring and graphics to make the user interface very effective and to keep it as simple as possible. Similarly, the interface should be visually, conceptually, and linguistically clear by including the visual elements, its functions, metaphors, words, and proper usage of text. So by doing this, we can achieve maximum clarity in the user interface design. So similarly, the user interface design must provide compatibility with the following, that is the user, the task and its job, the product, and it should always try to adopt the user perspective. Similarly, it should be comprehensible, configurable, and consistent. So a system should be easily learned and understood. A user should know the following, that is, what to look at in the interface, what to do, when to do it, and where to do it, and why to do it, and how to do it. The flow of actions, responses, visual presentations, and information should be in some sensible order that is easy to recollect and place in context. So similarly, configurability means it should permit easy personalization, configuration, and reconfigurations of the settings by enhancing a sense of control, and which also encourages an active role in user understanding of the system. Similarly, the system also should be consistent, that is, a system should look, act, and operate same throughout, and similar components should have same type of look or must have similar use and should operate similarly. So same action should always yield the same result throughout the interface. The functions of the elements should not change, and the position of standard elements should not change. Similarly, the user must have the control in the interaction. That is, actions should result from explicit user requests. They should be performed quickly, and the actions should be capable of interruption or termination. The user should never be interrupted for errors. The context maintained must be from the perspective of the user. The means to achieve goals should be flexible and compatible with the user's skills, experiences, habits, and preferences. So, similarly, the user interface must provide direct ways to accomplish the tasks. Therefore, the directness is expected so that available alternatives should always be visible to the user, and the effect of actions on the objects should also be made very clear and should be visible to the user. Similarly, it should be efficient, user interface should be efficient, should be familiar, and should be flexible. So, what do we mean by efficiency? A user interface is efficient if it tries to minimize the hand and eye movements and other control actions. So, transitions between various system controls should flow easily and freely. The navigation paths should be as short as possible, and the eye movement throughout a screen should obviously be sequential. Similarly, Similarly, try to offer familiarity. So, familiarity is nothing but we try to employ familiar concepts and use a language that is familiar to the user. Keep the interface natural, mimicking the user's behavior patterns, and try to make use of real world metaphors. And a system must be sensitive to differing needs of its users, enabling a level and type of performance based upon each user's knowledge and skills, his experience, maybe his personal preferences, and his habits. So the system must also be responsive and should have recovery capability. That is, a system should permit commands or actions to be abolished or reversed. Immediate return to a certain point if difficulty arises. It should also ensure that the user never loses his work as a result of an error or as a part of hardware, software, or some communication problem. The system must be responsive, that is, it should respond to the user rapidly upon his request, try to provide immediate acknowledgements for all the user actions. So, these acknowledgements could either be visual, textual, or auditory. And lastly, the user interface design should be simple. That is, you try to provide as simple an interface as possible. 5 ways to provide simplicity is use progressive disclosure, hiding things until they are needed, and then present common and necessary functions first, and prominently feature important functions. Try to hide more sophisticated and less frequently used functions. Now we move on to the differences between graphical user interface and the web page designing.